Coming up on this Monday edition of Philadelphia Eagles Now, I'm so ready to talk some birds following the weekend. Could a Maxx Crosby trade be back on? We'll talk about that. Also, the latest Eagles buzz coming out of the NFL League meetings from last week. Before we get to that, let's start this week off with a bang. NFL Draft coming up in a couple of short weeks at the end of this month. And we're bringing you nonstop Eagles coverage during the year, during the offseason right here on the program. There is a standard for us to uphold, and that's providing all of you with elite content. So we just surpassed 148,000 subscribers. Let's continue to build the empire. And with that, let's start the show. My name is Chase Sr. You're watching Philadelphia Eagles Now. I'm so glad all of you are hanging out here with me. Let's start with topic number one. Could a Maxx Crosby trade come back into the picture? ESPN proposed a Crosby trade to Philadelphia, and we'll get to that trade in a little bit. But in case you missed it over the last couple of weeks, this has been the Mad Max roller coaster. There's been a lot that has transpired and happened on this front. Of course, Crosby was traded to the Baltimore Ravens all the way back on March 6th. And that Friday trade was a blockbuster trade that sent a ripple effect across the entire National Football League. And the Ravens, a historical conservative organization, got aggressive. And they went out of their comfort zone. They sent a 2026 first-round pick and a 2027 first-round pick to the Las Vegas Raiders. I liked it for both parties, right? Crosby, a perfect player and fit culturally for Baltimore. He has been the perfect Raider, defining that type of toughness and love for football. And what has the Ravens' identity been for so long? What Crosby brings to the table on and off the field. And then for Las Vegas, they have torn it down to the studs, decided to rebuild. What better way to rebuild than with 4 first-round picks the next 2 years? 2 of their own picks, 2 picks from Baltimore. But of course, a few days later, on March 10th, what did Baltimore do? They backed out of the Crosby trade. It got negated, and Crosby made his way back to Las Vegas. Of course, why did the Ravens back out? They had concerns about Maxx Crosby's knee. But Baltimore was a little bit shady and a little bit slimy throughout this process. Of course, both parties knew about Crosby's injury. After the year, he had a full meniscus repair. It was not a trim. A lot of Philadelphia fans very familiar with that type of procedure because Joel Embiid has gotten that, right? But the Ravens knew they were acquiring a player who got surgery after the year. Of course, he wasn't going to pass a physical right now because he is going through his rehabilitation process. The Ravens claim that over the long haul, they had concerns about how that knee would age. What I really think happened, Baltimore got cold feet. They sent 2 first-round picks to Las Vegas. That is very out of the realm of what they've done as an organization because usually they don't make big splash moves like that. And at the start of free agency, they thought Trey Hendrickson was going to fly off the board. Well, he didn't get signed by anybody. His market went down. And so Baltimore was like, would we rather have an injured Maxx Crosby coming off a pretty serious knee injury or Trey Hendrickson for a little bit cheaper? Of course, Ravens GM Eric DeCosta had claimed we wanted to sign Trey Hendrickson and trade for Maxx Crosby. That was never happening because it wouldn't have made sense for Baltimore to do that. So instead, they pivoted. They backed out of the Crosby trade, and they signed Trey Hendrickson. Now, Crosby has since said, since this trade fell apart, I'm a Raider. I'm going back to Las Vegas. But Crosby also said that before. Shoot, he got the Raiders logo tatted on him, and he made it real, putting ink to skin and getting that Raiders logo on his body forever. But then what happened? He got tired of losing every single season. As he's getting older, he's feeling the pressure of wanting to play big games that actually matter, win, and be a part of a playoff contender. And so he forced his way out of Las Vegas, and he was fine with getting dealt when it seemed like as early as this time last year, he was never going to play for another team. The Raiders, to their credit, welcomed back Maxx Crosby, a franchise icon. And what I really like about what Las Vegas did on day one of free agency, when Crosby was still expected to be a Raven, They spent nearly $300 million on that Monday to kick off free agency. They honored all of those contracts, signed all of those players, and they're welcoming back Maxx Crosby to the fold. So if they end up having Crosby in 2026, I think that defense is going to be pretty damn good. And I do think the Raiders can be somewhat competitive and surprise some people. How do the Eagles enter the fold here? Let's get to that. From the Eagles' standpoint, does making a trade for Maxx Crosby make sense? Shoot, they still need to add a pass rusher to their roster. Right now they have Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, Arnold Ebiketie, Nolan Smith, Jalix Hunt. 4 players at that edge rusher spot. But I'd say that Joe Tryon is not a lock to make the team, and no player at edge is to the level of Maxx Crosby, although I really like the young players in Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt. What the Eagles have also done throughout this offseason is create cap space. Does that mean that they're going to make a big move to take on a large contract? Potentially. That's, of course, an option for Philadelphia. But also remember that cap space can be rolled over year, and the Eagles have some contract extensions that they're trying to hand out outside of Jordan Davis for some of their young marquee players. And so Philadelphia entered free agency with $12+ million in cap room. Look at where they are right now. $34.8 million, which is top 10 in the National Football League. As far as that ESPN trade that ESPN proposed, sending Crosby to Philadelphia, the Eagles would get Mad Max. The Raiders get the Eagles' first-round pick this year, 23rd overall, a third-round pick next year, and then a player asset. Nolan Smith, edge rusher, who is entering a big season if he potentially wants a contract extension and has shown a lot of flashes against the run and as a pass rusher to start his career. Here's what ESPN's write-up was on this Crosby trade. What? You thought we were making it through 32 trades without a Crosby deal? Well, Crosby is saying that he wants to move forward with the only pro organization he has ever known after his trade to the Ravens fell through. The same logic that led the Raiders to initially deal Crosby to Baltimore still holds. Vegas doesn't appear to be close to seriously contending. Crosby turns 29 in August. He wants to win, ideally sooner rather than later. That might happen in Vegas, but by the time it does, Crosby would be well past his peak. With a prediction or predilection for trades and an affinity for elite defensive linemen, Howie Roseman's Eagles have always been on the fringes of the Crosby sweepstakes. The issue is money. Philadelphia is spending a whopping $219 million on their offense this season. And though the defense comes in at just over $86 million, those figures will change in the years to come. Jordan Davis just got paid. D-line partner Jalen Carter should be next. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean are about to get much bigger deals after 2026. The Eagles will have to shift some money from offense to defense, and spending a ton on Crosby won't make that process easier. And I share a lot of those similar thoughts. Now, a couple of weeks ago, there was that report that maybe the Eagles could include Jalen Carter in a trade for Maxx Crosby. That's not a move that I wanted the Eagles to make. Jalen Carter is in his mid-20s. He's just hitting his prime. He is affordable now, but is even going to be affordable when he signs that contract extension compared to the deal that Crosby is under. And I'd rather build around Jalen Carter, younger player, than an older player in Maxx Crosby. So that's one thing. Trading Nolan Smith for Crosby, I think, is another thing. And it's another scenario that I find to be pretty interesting. At the edge rusher spot, Eagles have 2 players who they really like, Nolan Smith, Jalix Hunt. If the Eagles are going to pay Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, they might have to choose between one of Jalix and Nolan. And if they were to choose between one right now, I think they would choose Jalix Hunt over Nolan Smith. So my ruling on this, my thoughts on this trade, the defense is already set to get expensive in the future. We've talked so often about how expensive the offense is right now. But with the defense set to increase in cash spending and overall price, adding Maxx Crosby to a unit that's already going to grow as far as dollars spent, I don't think makes a lot of sense to me. I have reservations about the age, the contract, and the injury, and so I would not make this trade for Maxx Crosby, but it is an intriguing one. Let's leave it up to you to answer it. Would you make that trade for Mad Max? Type T for trade, P for pass. I always want you to be a part of the show, so comment your thoughts down below. More to get to here in just a moment, but first, get your Howie Season shirts right now. Chatsports.com/Howie Season. During free agency, we sold about 100 of these. Going into the draft, it's still Howie Season. Howie Season never sleeps because this man never sleeps. Helped to design these with our design guy, Arnold, who's been crushing it across the board. Our chief design officer, I think is what our COO called him today. Chatsports.com/Howie Season. Available in black in addition to Kelly Green. Get your shirts. Support the show. Support Howie. Rep Howie and the Birds. Chatsports.com/Howie Season. All right, I'm going to go rapid fire through the biggest Eagles news and rumors coming out of the league meeting. So let's get to it here. We'll cut this up for social media and a YouTube short. Here's the hottest Eagles news right now coming out of the league meetings. I know Eagles fans are very tired about hearing about the A.J. Brown trade conversations. It continues to be a conversation. And the expectation is, if anything happens with an A.J. Brown trade coming out of the league meetings, it will be a post-June 1 trade so that the Eagles can spread out that dead money over this year and next year. This Eagles offense last season, 20th in points per game. Howie said last week, that's unacceptable. The Eagles are banking on this unit getting healthier and adding quality depth with players like Marquise Hollywood Brown, who will serve as a vertical and speed threat, hopefully alongside A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. The Eagles went into free agency wanting to keep Jalen Phillips, but they did have a walkaway price. Phillips ended up getting $30 million per year from the Carolina Panthers. And so since the Eagles couldn't sign Phillips and retain him, they pivoted. And that's a credit to Howie Roseman. They went into free agency not expecting to add Riq Woolen, but they have added him to the secondary, which was already talented, and now arguably going into this year might be the best corner trio in the National Football League. Zach Berman reporting that he doesn't expect former Eagles legendary offensive line coach Jeff Stoutland to be around the team in 2026. That's not really a surprise. There is also coming out of the league meetings a lot of intrigue and excitement about Sean Mannion's offense. And I can't wait to see it come to fruition with this new scheme coming to Philadelphia, which is a lot more modern day. And according to Jeffrey Lurie, Nick Sirianni played a huge role in wanting to change the Eagles' scheme and offensive philosophy. Over the weekend, the Eagles did lose Vice President of Football Operations Jeff Scott to Atlanta. Been with this organization over the last several years. He'll be the assistant GM under Ian Cunningham with Atlanta. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We're always chopping it up, talking Birds right here on the show. Happy Monday, everybody. We'll catch you soon.